And welcome to Take Time. I am your host, Patrick Marlette, and let's talk about what's inside this box. This is another two-part video focusing in on the SSA345J, which is the new cocktail time from Seiko. I'm very excited to have this in, but as some of you guys may know already, these two-part videos serve two functions. The first being a thorough review on my part, because after the unboxing and first impression, I'm going to be wearing this watch for a week to give you a week in the life experience with said watch. The second part, and this is the fun one for me, is that I'm going to take any questions, comments, or concerns in regards to the watch from this first part video and answer any of those inquiries later in the second half. Now, as with all these two-part videos, the first part is going to be pretty much hands-on with the watch, so you won't have to see me for too much longer. Of course, this is just an unboxing and first impression, so expect all of the tech specs, any of the nitty-gritty, and maybe some history regarding the piece over in part 2. That is going to be the deep dive into what this watch is and my experiences with it. But this watch is just too cool not to mention at least a little bit of the history before opening this Seiko Presage Cocktail Time. Now, the first watch in the Cocktail Time series, and I'm going to call it the first watch because it is a clear inspiration for the Presage line of Cocktail Time watches, came out in 2010 and was known as the SARB or the SARB 065. That watch was born from a collaboration between Seiko and Shinobu Ishigaki, who is a master mixologist, and he actually helped design 3 watches for the brand, all themed thematically around cocktail beverages. Hence the name Cocktail Time, and the cult following has existed over the last 7 years and has culminated into Seiko getting the big idea to release a whole line of cocktail-themed watches. What is inside this box today is known as the Espresso Martini, and I am so excited to find out what this guy looks like in person. So why don't we jump to it? So I purchased my SSA345J from eBay, and I was able to snag it for right around $350. I think that is a fair rate for what you're getting. This watch does utilize a 4R movement, and that's only a small step above the 7S series of movements from Seiko. So, you know, wouldn't want to spend too much more than that, but what you are getting is pretty phenomenal from what I understand. Everyone's been raving about this watch since Baselworld, so let's find out what it looks like. Now, as you can tell, I have my calipers off to the side because I've heard different measurements from different resources on the scale of this watch, so I just want to go ahead and measure this on camera for you guys to get a good sense of how large it actually is. So in the box with my watch, I was sent a manual for the 4R57 movement. I've got a pretty good idea of how this guy operates, but this manual is in a couple different languages for you, so if you don't know how to use the 4R57, this is going to help you. What's special about this particular movement is that it features a power reserve indicator. It's actually right there. That's a language I don't understand, but you can pretty much grasp what it's saying by looking at the illustrations here. But let's toss this off to the side. Oh boy, moment of truth. I am so excited for this particular watch. As soon as I saw the Espresso Martini coloration, I was completely sold. And as you guys know, I'm not huge into dress watches. I bought the King Seiko because it's the king of dress watches, but let's see if this guy changes my mind. I was sent a signed warranty card? Madness. This is great. Worldwide guarantee? Stop. All right, behind this warranty card is the Seiko in question, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at that. Now, before we look at the dial, I want to go ahead and look at that exhibition case back, and yes, this is indeed Hardlex. I know that's going to be upsetting for a lot of you guys, but if you're a Seiko fan like myself, you come to expect to see Hardlex in pretty much all their watches. Seiko loves to put Hardlex crystal on their watches, both in the case back and, of course, on the front. That is their proprietary mineral crystal. It's what they use for most of their watches, especially their dive watch range. And we've got this really nice genuine leather strap that has an alligator grain to it. And of course you have a fold over buckle that you actually set into the opposite end, so you don't have to go in and like adjust the buckle to the hole for your fit every single time. You just need to set it and forget it pretty much. Is the rotor gold, copper, brass? I don't know, but it does look really beautiful alongside that 4R57 movement. And of course, if you're a Seiko snob like myself, this is the J version, so it will say Made in Japan, as you can see right up there at the top right. And without further ado, why don't we go ahead and just take in the dial face. So there are obviously a few cosmetic differences between this and its predecessor, the SSA345. Most notably is the power reserve on this particular unit, and of course there is another unit they sell that's more true to the original's form, but I had to go for this one. I just thought it was perfectly crafted. I love the redesign here with the power reserve, and of course, nixing the date window at the 3 o'clock and adding a date track at the 6 o'clock instead. I just thought this added such a beautiful symmetry to the dial that it was the one to get. But aside from the change with the power reserve and the date setup, you have hour markings that go around the watch that are completely intact. If you know anything about the SSA345, it actually had segmented hour markings that went around the dial instead of these full hour markers you see here. Another change between this piece and its predecessor is that crown over at the 3 o'clock position. It is humongous relative to the other version, and I'm happy to say it's actually quite a welcome change because this watch does feature hacking and hand winding. It's nice to have a bigger crown to grip onto, and you can actually see that power reserve hand moving as I wind the watch, and man, that is a joy. I've actually never had a watch with a power reserve, so I'm gonna get a real kick out of this while I'm winding this. And what I love about the power reserve function on any watch is that it allows you to see how much power you have in your watch and gives you a good idea of when you should probably stop winding this. And I think a good practice for this would be to get it about halfway and to just put it on your wrist. As this features an automatic movement, it's going to charge up as you wear it, so you don't need to hand wind this all the way. Again, I think just getting it to about halfway and then enjoying it on the wrist is the best way to go. By the way, the hang tag on this guy is really slick. I like how it's covered in this hard plastic. It makes you think it's of, higher quality, a finer piece of craftsmanship from the Seiko lineup, the Presage. I really like this. I don't think any of my hang tags from Seiko have had a plastic protective sleeve, but we're definitely going to leave this in there. By the way, a lot of the images I've seen for this particular model, the 345, have had a brownish tint to the dial, and I have to say that was alluring, and it made sense to me because it was, called the espresso martini, so you'd expect a brownish hue, but I'm not really seeing that here, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I've got the white balance right on this guy, my camera that is, so you should be able to see the color of this watch and its actual fidelity, but I'm not really picking up on any brown notes. It's more of a dark gray to light gray sunray finish. And while we're looking at it, why don't we talk about that dial? This dial is why everyone is going crazy. I do not know how it is finished. I do not know how it was crafted to look so beautiful, but that sunray finish is an effect that's, the largest and most prominent feature of this watch because it is absolutely stunning. And it's why everyone's going gaga over this piece, and I'm just gushing right now looking at it. So right away I can tell you that this watch has a 20mm lug width, and let me see about the lug to lug here. We're looking at about 48mm lug to lug. It's hard for me to read these measurements as I'm looking through the camera's monitor, but let me see if I can figure this one out here. Okay, so it is indeed 40.5 in width, and the thickness, probably the most important part. Before we do the actual thickness of the watch, why don't we look at the thickness of this crown here, because this thing is just gorgeous. Okay, 7mm thick at its widest, and this has tape on the edges of it. If you're wondering if I'm going to damage my Hardlex crystal here, don't worry about that. And wow, it is 14.5, just as they stated. That is, at least on their website. 14.5 millimeters thick. Now, this is going to be a point of contention for a lot of Seiko enthusiasts because the SARB that this was modeled after was much thinner, and the other version of this watch that matches the SARB is actually a little bit thinner than the original, but this guy is rather thick for a dress watch. So why is it so thick? Well, it's the inclusion of that movement, and this crystal, honestly, the crystal itself is raised off the dial quite a bit, but that doesn't make up for the total thickness of this piece, and it is indeed rather thick. So we'll see if that is a real bother on a day-to-day basis with this watch. For me, I don't think it will be. You know, I don't really wear button downs with cuffs that need to be buttoned on the job or just day-to-day. So, you know, I don't think this is going to be a huge issue for me, but we'll find out. And the last thing I want to talk about before I wrap up this video is that amazing sub-dial at 6 o'clock. Oh gosh, it is so gorgeous. So the ring itself where the dates are featured is raised off of the dial, and then it is recessed in the center where that hand, the indicator for those dates, is resting. And you can see it actually has its own sort of radial finish, that sun ray finish. So you're going to get two sort of sunburst effects at once while you stare at this watch. And gosh, I'm going to be admiring this thing a whole lot. I'm positive when it's on my wrist. It's, you know, it's entirely too gorgeous not to look at. So, yeah. Again, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this piece, if you are looking to purchase it yourself, feel free to ask those questions now in the comment section down below, and I will do my best to respond to, well, obviously the most liked ones, but also the frequently reoccurring questions and concerns of this piece. I will try to address those all at the end of the part 2 video, so expect solid answers. And of course, you know, a lot of times, you know, many of your thoughts and concerns are both my own and yours, and I'll likely respond to those as I just go over the review. So, you know, you'll definitely get an answer, and if I don't answer your question, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below of part 2, and of course I'll answer you down there. But gang, that is it for the first impression. I'm awestruck. I think it looks fantastic. I'm extremely excited to start wearing this piece day to day and, you know, forming a firmer opinion of it. I think I am going to use the provided leather strap, although I do have a whole host of alternatives in the 20mm range. So, you know, I'm going to try this on with some different styles of strap and, of course, different variations of leather. But ultimately, I think I'm going to fall back on this guy. I think it's interesting that the longer bit of strap is actually at the 12 o'clock. That's not typical, but anyways. Yes, very, very excited to give you my thoughts on this piece. Guys, if you like this video, feel free to hit that like button. It looks something like this. If you have friends, forums, or groups that enjoy watch content and are interested in getting the presaged cocktail time, especially the espresso martini, well then maybe, just maybe, you should share this with them. And if you are a longtime viewer of the show and haven't subscribed yet, I would encourage you to do so now, particularly if you're interested in seeing my full review of this piece. You can actually hit the bell next to the subscribe button and you'll be notified as soon as that releases. Again, enthusiast, my name is Patrick Marlette, and thank you for the time.